You ever ride into a place and feel the air shift, like it's holding its breath, waiting for something to break? That's what Cold Creek, Montana, felt like on that dry summer day in 1878 when I rolled into town. My name's Samuel Cridge, and I wasn't looking for trouble, just a sack of grain, a new axle for my wagon, and maybe a quiet corner to eat my beans without someone asking about the ghosts I carried. I'd lost my wife, Miriam, and our baby girl to a cruel spring frost years back, and since then, I'd learned to let silence be my closest friend. It didn't judge, didn't pry, just sat with you under the stars. But silence, I learned that day, can shatter like glass. I tied my horse, Daisy, loose near the general store, and was about to head in when I heard Ida low murmur, not the usual saloon chatter or auction bell, but something heavier, like guilt wrapped in whispers. Behind the saloon, where broken crates and rusted spittoons piled up, a small crowd had gathered, maybe 10 folks, their eyes darting toward the alley then away, like they were scared to look too long. Curiosity ain't a virtue, but something about that hush pulled me in, slow and steady, like a rope tightening around my chest. And then I saw her. She stood there, blonde hair tangled, dress patched and mud-streaked, one hand resting on her swollen belly, the other hanging limp at her side. Her face was pale, too pale for summer, and her eyes, God, those eyes stared at the cracked dirt like she was willing it to swallow her whole. She wasn't crying. That would have been easier to bear. 2 men stood nearby, brothers. I'd learn later, her late husband's kin. One was bearded, mean-eyed, reeking of cheap whiskey. The other leaned against a barrel, smirking like he'd just won a hand of poker. A fat merchant with dirty fingernails stood close, sizing her up like she was livestock. "Don't look like much," the bearded one muttered, "but she's healthy. Kids near term. Strong stock. Could be useful if you got needs." Someone in the crowd chuckled. Another spat. My jaw tightened so hard I thought my teeth might crack. The girl didn't flinch, didn't speak, just kept staring at that ground. The merchant waved a hand. "I ain't taking no charity case with a mouth to feed." The smirking brother laughed. "She ain't charity. She's kin. Husband died, left debts. We're just setting things right." Someone muttered, "Ain't no preacher at this auction." I took a step forward, boots crunching on gravel. The bearded one turned, eyes narrowing. "You looking to buy, stranger?" he sneered. Her eyes lifted then, just for a heartbeat, and met mine. Not pleading, not broken, but hollow, like the world had taken everything and left her nothing but echoes. "No," I said, voice low, "just looking." But I wasn't. Something in her silence hit me like a blade, slicing open a wound I'd buried years. Agamy daughter, born too early, gone before she could cry, and Miriam, fading a week later under that damn cottonwood tree. The bearded one laughed, a nasty, wet sound. "Don't worry, she ain't got the strength to protest. Never did. Soft-spoken. Makes it easier." Her lips moved, no sound, but her eyes blinked, like a storm was brewing behind them. "Where's the sheriff?" someone whispered. "Probably paid to look the other way," another hissed. Heat rose in me, not the kind that makes you swing, but the cold, sharp kind, like frostbite creeping up your bones. I stepped closer. "How much you want?" The merchant and both brothers turned. She didn't. The bearded one squinted. "You serious?" I nodded. Silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. $50, he spat. "And a rifle, if you got one." I reached into my coat, tossed a leather pouch heavy with coins, then unhooked the old Winchester from my back. "You're a damn fool," someone muttered. The bearded one snatched the rifle like a kid grabbing candy. Coins were counted, no ceremony, no shame. "She's yours," he said, grinning. I didn't move. "What's her name?" He shrugged. "Does it matter?" I looked at her. She looked back, eyes steady now. "Yes." Her voice came, small and cracked. "Eleanor Dumont." That name, that voice, it broke something open in me, turned her from a shadow into a person. I offered my hand. She didn't take it, but she stepped toward me, and that was enough. We walked through Cold Creek like ghosts, the sun dipping low, painting the dirt gold. No one stopped us. A few eyes lingered, but most turned away. Guilt makes cowards of decent folks. I helped her into my wagon, and we rolled out of town, dust swirling behind us. She sat with her hands folded over her belly, staring ahead like a woman sentenced to a life she didn't choose. We didn't speak for miles. Finally, I said, "You don't owe me nothing, you understand?" She didn't answer, just glanced at me for a second, then forward again. We stopped for the night in a hollow by a dry riverbed. I built a small fire, gave her my coat. She took it, no words. I offered jerky and cornbread. She ate without tasting. "I ain't a man who saves people," I muttered, poking the fire. "Just couldn't leave you there." Still silence. The flames crackled. Then she spoke, quiet, raw. "They weren't always cruel." I didn't answer. "Some truths don't need echoing." "They said I was a burden," she went on. "Too much to feed. Said my husband's death made me worthless." I stared into the fire. "They were wrong." She looked at me, then back to the flames. "I don't know where we're going," she whispered. "Neither do I." The baby kicked. She flinched. I noticed. "You all right?" She nodded. Then, soft, "Why'd you do it?" I hesitated. "'Cause I saw my wife's eyes in yours." She blinked, firelight catching a tear she didn't let fall. I rolled out a blanket for her, took the hard ground myself. She whispered, "Thank you." So quiet I almost missed it. I closed my eyes, wondering if redemption sneaks in like that, not loud, not grand, but in the quiet of a broken soul reaching out. Morning came heavy with fog, thick as wool, muffling the world. I woke before dawn, made coffee, watched her sleep, curled tight like she was guarding something even in her dreams. When she stirred, I handed her a tin cup. "We'll reach my ranch by sundown," I said. "Ain't fancy, but it's dry. Bed's decent. Stove works if you sweet-talk it." She nodded, sipping slow, the cup rattling against her lip. We rode in quiet, the mules snorting, trees looming like ghosts in the mist. She didn't ask about the ranch or me, so I told her anyway. Grew up in Kansas. Dustier than here, meaner too. Pa was a preacher. Ma died birthin' my sister. She didn't make it past 6 winters. Left at 16, thought I'd find gold. Found cattle instead. I glanced at her. Her fingers clenched in her lap. Miriam, my wife, was better than I deserved. Freckles like cinnamon, could outshoot me blindfolded. We lost our first kid to the cold. She followed 2 months later. My voice cracked. She turned slightly, then forward again, but her shoulders softened. The ranch was plain weathered boards, 2 windows, a slanted porch. I helped her down, careful not to linger. She moved slow, each step deliberate. Inside, it was sparse. Table, 2 chairs, iron stove, a bed with Miriam's quilt. She paused, ran her hand along the patchwork. "I'll take the barn tonight," I offered. "You rest." Her voice was barely there. "No, I ain't helpless." I nodded, left a basin of warm water by the bed, and went to chop wood until my arms burned, not for the stove, but to quiet the roar in my head. Days passed in a fragile rhythm. She swept the floor, cooked what she could, sat on the porch staring at nothing. I kept my distance, let her own the silence. Then one evening, she brought me coffee while I mended a fence. "Coffee," she said, holding it out. I took it, careful. "Thank you." She stood close, not touching, but near enough I felt her in my ribs. "I used to hum," she said soft. "When I was a girl. Ain't done it in years. Maybe you will again." She didn't answer, but the next morning, folding laundry on the porch, I heard Ida faint note, broken but brave. I kept whittling, didn't look up. Then came the knock. Late, too late for neighbors. I grabbed the rifle. Eleanor froze. The knock came again. 3 men stood outside, her brother-in-law, the bearded one, with 2 others. "Evenin', Cridge," he said, smiling crooked. "You ain't welcome here. Just checkin' on kin. She's carryin' family blood. She ain't yours to check on." Eleanor stepped behind me, hand on the doorframe. "She told you no?" I said. "That's enough." The man grinned. "You think buying her changes that? We're here to take her home." "She is home," I said. Eleanor's voice cut through, sharp. "You're not talking me." His eyes burned. "You'll regret this. That kid'll grow up with nothing. I'll give him this story," she said, "of how we stood our ground." He spat, turned, and left. Eleanor didn't tremble, but later, on the porch, her breath caught. "You knew they'd come," she whispered. "Figured. They want the child. They can want all they like." She looked at me, bare, open. "I'm scared." "So am I." She smiled, faint. "I've been thinking maybe I'll ask." "Ask what?" "To be your wife." I took her hand. Let the warmth speak louder than words. The fire came weeks later, not a blaze but a creeping beast, born in the dry hay and fed by a spark no one claimed. I smelled smoke, bolted from bed, shotgun in hand. Eleanor followed, robe dragging, hand on her belly. The barn was alive with flames, sparks like angry stars. The mule screamed. I ran in, coat over my head, cut its rope, and stumbled out, coughing, eyes streaming. Eleanor shouted my name, pulled me back to the porch. Neighbors came buckets, blankets, rough hands. Someone whispered they'd seen a rider leave before the fire. No one named him. We didn't need to. Morning brought ash and ruin. The barn was gone, but the cradle inside the house stood untouched, Eleanor's quilt folded neat. She sat at the table, shawl tight. They want to break us. I poured water. They won't. She looked at me, steady. I believe you. Her labor came sudden. In the blue hush before dawn, wind howling fierce. I boiled water, called the neighbor woman. Eleanor gripped the bedpost, teeth clenched, knuckles white. The pain was long, but when the boy's cry broke through, it drowned out the fire's memory. Dark-haired, loud, furious at the world. Eleanor wept, cradling him. I stepped outside, whispered her name Eleanor into the wind. We rebuilt the barn, neighbors pitching in. Eleanor planted tomatoes, lavender. The baby's laughter lit the house. One day, I found her in the dirt, ribbon in her hair, smiling like a secret she could keep. Thought I'd die out here, she said. You didn't. No. I live. That fall, we wed again, proper, under the cottonwood. Neighbors raised glasses. Eleanor placed a flower on Miriam's grave, not jealousy, but gratitude. In town, whispers faded. We were a Unita man who protected, a woman once sold, now seen, and a child born in our storm. Sometimes, on quiet nights, Eleanor hums. I rock our boy, closing my eyes to remember a whisper behind a saloon, a silence that became speech, a wound that became roots. Let history write its wars. Ours is written in soil, ash, and blue ribbon. And for anyone wondering if broken things bloom, Eleanor's my answer. She lived it. So what do you think? Was it right to stand our ground, to fight for her freedom, or should we have walked away? Drop a comment. Share your thoughts. Let's talk about what justice really means out here.